What is happening in the DRC and who is to blame for it?
The biggest problem in DRC currently now is the mineral resources in DRC, which is the cobalt. We can't keep blaming the colonial guys for the problem that we're facing in Africa. If South Africa is one of the countries that is producing gold, for instance, how come we can't then begin to find a way of partnering with Zimbabwe for them to refine the gold? The inequality in South Africa is very strong. Let's say it like a spade. We effed up.
Welcome back to Palatable Politics, a show where we take the complexity out of politics and make it palatable for you. With me, your host, TJ Maslela. Welcome to the show. In today's session, we're going to go outside of our borders. We're going to go into Africa, the challenges, the dynamics, and what we need to do to unite as a continent. Here to give us insight is Darlington Steve, is a fellow podcaster, a transformational leader, a pastor, and also a businessman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Tapelo, for inviting me on your platform.
So you run AFAN Network.
Yes.
Can you give us a bit of insight as to what it is and what its objective is?
From the name AFAN, you can tell that we're trying as much as possible for us as Africans to become one. And so what we then do is for us is to try and see how to be able to create systems and structures which we already have in terms of unifying us as Africa. What are the innovative ways that we can then begin to bring on the table, despite the fact that we are diverse either in our race, in our color, in our tribes and languages, or probably what can we then do for us to be able to elevate one another? So for us as AFAN Network is to say we as Africans is enough for the segregation and the division that is within our space, and for us to see how to come together to become one. And in coming together to become one, not just based on the fact that we just want to say oneness because you are black, but oneness for the vision for the continent. Where is Africa going to from here? What needs to happen? What are the conversations and actions that needs to take place? We get to see, for example, with what the African Union is doing. One of the big things there, I then tell people, I said, yes, we all know about African Union, but do you have the point, plan, and agenda of which African Union is doing? Is there any pamphlet out there that actually says that this is what African Union is doing? And so based on that, we as AFAN, we say, we don't just want to be an organization that is just talking, but an organization that is going to hold you, the leaders, hold the people, and hold the community in terms of fostering innovation, finding a way to become unified as one, and also the big one for us, which is partnership and collaboration. That's just what AFAN is all about.
Can you give us the landscape as to a political landscape as to Africa currently? What is it? Where is it at? Are we united? How not united
I think with our political landscape in Africa, it's a good question. At the moment, we have a lot of disparities that is currently going on. For instance, you have the whole issue of tribal disparities, you have regional bloc disparities, you have individual disparities, you have leadership disparities and all of those things. And so when we look at our political landscape, based on the fact that our colonial so-called, I don't like using the word masters, but the guys who seems to think that they are smarter than us, came into our place to then begin to help us enforce the fact that the politics of Africa literally has to be their own way. And so because of that, at the moment in our political landscape, we're still trying to struggle. Should we stay with the Western politics or should we stay with the African politics? The African politics, for example, we all know is the issue of kingdoms and tribes and elders and all of those things. But yet you still have the Western politics, which is democracy. Then you also have the one which is the authoritarians, who then the dictators who then believe that, okay, the politics is mine. So each region has its own diversity, have their own pain, their own challenges and stuff that which they're doing. So at the moment, yes, smaller conversations are going behind the scene as to unity, but at the moment where we are not there yet. In terms of position, I would say if we have to calculate it, probably we're sitting at about 0.2% in terms of African unity.
Wow, okay. Now, when it comes to peace in Africa, there are a lot of countries where there are peacekeeping forces.
Okay.
But the peacekeeping forces are always there and there's never peace in those countries. Can you give us a bit of insight as to why that is and how it came about?
I think the reason why, that's a good question when it comes to peacekeeping missions that we see across Africa. And that's literally the biggest problem we're facing in Africa. these peacekeepers or this peacekeeping mission we're seeing across our terrain. You will hear the words saying they are coming to keep peace in DRC Congo, but yet they are the ones sponsoring that very particular fight that is happening. Now, you find the fact that when it comes to this peacekeeping mission, most African countries, and this is where many people do not understand, is the fact that they are being funded by this peacekeeping organization to be able to run their government. But when you look at the peacekeeping mission business, sometimes it's also a business. It's a business in the sense that, yes, we want to give you peace, but at the same time, you must use our guns to be able to sort out the peace. Or you must be able to bring us on the table for us to be able to negotiate peace. But even with that, the peacekeeping mission problem is the fact that these people who come in from the West, they don't address the root cause of the problem. And the reason why is because of the diversity and the regional disparities that is in those localities. For example, I'll tell you, imagine DRC Congo and somebody is saying to you that we are coming to bring peace in DRC, but chances are you may not be able to speak Lingala properly. You have no understanding of what happened between the Lingalas, the Lubumbashi, and all of these very particular things. So you are solving the problem. Tribes, right? Yeah, you are solving the problem from the top view, but the wound inside is rotten. So if the wound is rotten and you look, okay, fine, how do we address this rotten wound? You don't have an answer because you were not there when the problem began.
Okay, one, are you saying that the fundamental problem is tribalism?
African leaders, majority of them they are talented greeders, if there's an English like that. Because if you look at, for example, look at what is happening currently now in Kenya, where the people decided to say enough is enough. You can't be pricing everything to the point that the basic essentials of the people of that very particular land, you are also taxing them. There are commodities in which you can tax that can make the people be able to say, fine, we can go with this, but you can't tax a basic commodity like a bread. What's it called? Children diapers, ladies stuff that they're using now. But guess what? It's all stemmed from the place of greed. I was speaking to a friend of mine, permit me not to mention the name, and we're both just chatting in what is happening in Kenya. And I said to him, we're talking about the whole issue of political instability. And I said to him, the problem there is the fact that when you look at what the government of that country there is trying to put on the table, you created a budget for a particular ministry that does not exist, and yet you are going to pay the husband of the ministry and the wife of the ministry that literally does not exist. Let's call a spade a spade. That is great. So for us as Africans, and what is currently happening in our region is the fact that we have not been able to sit with ourselves and literally ask ourselves, what is the root cause?
Politics in Africa is the game of the poor. And I guess that largely speaks to or justifies the whole thing of greed. But how does one change that to have leaders that are developmental in thought?
In trying to bring leaders that are developmental in thought, they must also be able to embrace the fact that they want to develop. Because you can't be looking at leader who does not want to develop. I think that it's a popular saying of a particular man, I've forgotten his name. It says, I do not think of a man who is not willing for them to learn, unlearn, and relearn. How many of us in Africa are willing to unlearn? Currently now, Africa now, that average country, we've all been enslaved for 400 years. And I like saying to people, I said, see, 400 years, for crying out loud, enough is enough. We can't keep blaming the colonial guys for the problem that we're facing in Africa. For instance, people will sit with me and start telling me what happened in Kodesa and all of these very particular things. I say, good, you are informed about that narrative. What are you doing now to change that? What is the next Kodesa that we can go now to begin to rewrite the narratives of Africa? So when we look at the politics, when they say politics is politics of the poor or the game of the poor and stuff, it's actually not just a game, it's just a greed system. Where some certain people believe that I own Africa, or I'm trying to be censored, but I own the control of South Africa. Without me, South Africa is going to burn and stuff. Let's be honest, it's greed.
And the impact of the East and West in terms of ideology and those countries by themselves on Africa, what would you say that impact is in stopping us from developing or being where we should be?
The impact is great. The impact is very strong. I like cracking joke. I said for you to see how strong their impact is the fact that you and I, as much as we're a podcaster, the platforms in which we're putting our content is not owned by Africa. Now, that will make you to understand the impact in which they have. Because tomorrow night they can wake up and say they want to close YouTube. They want to close TikTok. They want to close Facebook. What can we as Africans do? And so the problem there is the fact that Africans need to begin to get to the point where we begin to conscientize ourselves or to update our mind that we are not consumers, but we need to begin to produce. If the West is going to come in and begin to pull out all the things in code that they have invested in this continent, can an average African survive? If tomorrow Mark Zuckerberg is going to close WhatsApp, how will you communicate with me? So until we begin to have, like your talk you said, until we begin to have leaders who are progressive in thinking, and it's not a matter of telling the leaders to be progressive, they have to embed, have that embodiment in them. You can't, there's this saying we say in my country is the fact that a lizard in Nigeria can never become a crocodile in America. It is still going to be a lizard. And so based on that very particular, the West has influence, they have control, because majority of the African country at the moment now is being funded by these very particular guys. Most countries budget literally to run their country economy. It has to come from the aid of the West or aid from the East. And so the only way we can begin to break that very particular hold upon our lives is for us as Africans. And this is the thing I like saying. What is South Africa doing? If South Africa is one of the countries that is producing gold, for instance, how come we can't then begin to find a way of partnering with Zimbabwe for them to refine the gold? Or how come they can't be to partner with Nigeria for them? Nigeria is one of the countries in Africa that is currently producing oil. But we can't be taking our oil outside to the West for them to refine the oil and bring it back to our continent and sell it at a premium price. So the only way we can begin to deal with the influence of the West, which I promise you it's not going to be an easy stuff. Africans also, part of our problem is the fact that we're not willing to fight. We want to throw our blames all the time. Yeah, it's the West. Amara is the black. No, it's this foreigners. It's this. That's the average problem of Africa. So the West, no.
What does that mean? What does fighting look like?
Fighting in terms of for us to really stand. Look at what is happening in Kenya. That's fight.
Okay.
The ability for us to say enough is enough. We cannot sit back and watch our gold being taken out of our continent, not refined by any of the African nation, and we did people, we just sit back and like, yeah, it's okay. And yeah, they take it, they bring it back, and they sell it to us at a premium price. But here, there is nothing of such in terms of, look at Ghana. Ghana is one of the greatest countries when it comes to cocoa production. Congo now, the battle of Congo is the phone that you and I are using. How many of us are willing to get to the point where we say, no, we drop our phones? To hell with Apple, to hell with Samsung, to hell with these very particular guys and come. Sorry for my insults and stuff. That's just me on my other side. But with all of that, to say, no, enough is enough. If you guys are not going to start producing the phone in Africa, we are not going to use that very particular phone. And I bet you the moment we get to that very particular, obviously there will be sellout. That are those few sellout, and the sellout rises and they show up their face. Baba, you deal with them decisively. When I mean deal, it means anything.
Okay. But one would argue now that we have had leaders that have tried that.
Yeah.
And something happens to them, whether it's Sankara, Gaddafi, Zamora Machel, Chris Hani, something happens. So what can we do to have those type of leaders and have them have a term or finish a term without catching a bullet?
It goes back to what I like saying. It's called the negotiation of the belly.
Okay.
Negotiation. When your stomach is hungry, you will compromise anything. Now, your Thomas Sankara, Gaddafi, and all these great men that you've mentioned, these are people that I also love and I respect their fight. Their time is quite difficult to fight and win, but currently now we have a good way for us to fight and win. The advent of social media has given us chance whereby I can sit here literally in where you guys are broadcasting from right now, and yet I can know what is happening in Congo or probably in Nigeria. Now, the reason why your likes of Thomas Sankara and all these guys could not is because everybody that was around them, and many of them, they want their pocket. The big one, let's look at Gaddafi. Gaddafi actually, before they killed him, this man was literally feeding, if you're a firstborn in this country, there's a salary for you, whether you're a firstborn male or female. He was planning to produce, not even was planning, he actually produced this very particular, security cars that America take as a premium product. Gaddafi literally has a manufacturing plant literally in Africa here where that very particular product needs to be coming out, and it's going to be sold for as less than 1,000 rand. It's going to be sold for less than 1,000 rand. Producing of all of these very particular things, machineries, weapon, and all of these things to say, we are enough. But you know the story. They use the same so-called close people with him. And to say, if you can be able to deal with this guy, this thing he's saying, it can't work. Because this is the game they play, and this is where Africa will still remain. It will still take a bit of time, is the fact that why must it be that Tapelo must be the one to lead when you know that you can also lead? That's the battle we're facing with the likes of then Thabo Mbeki and the late, the Zimbabwe late president, Mugabe. Because Thabo Mbeki, you will see the same people who will go meet Thabo Mbeki to say, hey, this is what we are believing, this is what we believe that Mugabe can do and code. They will take that information of Thabo Mbeki, go meet Mugabe, tell Mugabe a different story entirely and code. And yet these two parties, they're literally fighting for one Africa. Then the next minute, the political party will come like, where you are going to, Amara, we don't like this one. It's all the whole issue of we are not centered in our thought. We don't have, and that's why, for example, with us in the organization, we record AFAN. What is the one thing that we want to do? Let's start from one. The problem is the fact that that's the challenge we're facing with African Union. We have too many stuff, or they have too many stuff they want to do. If, for example, one thing you will see, okay, let's do one passport. One passport was not working. They stopped it. The next minute, okay, fine, let's do this African Free Trade Continental Area and co. They're having challenges, they stop it. The next minute, okay, fine, let's try as much as possible to find a way of integrating the people from regional place. Mara, this thing is going to be difficult. They stopped it.
Who's they?
African Union. Now, with African Union also with themselves also. No, I like using the word, and I know this may cause me problem, and I'm okay because I'm used to it. I call them the toothless bulldog.
What? Oh, the toothless bulldog, okay.
Yes, they shout, but at the end of it all, we don't see anything. If all of these things is happening around our continent, how come we're not seeing solutions from your side? Let's even look at what happened with your South African election just of recent. There was a time where one of the political parties decided to want to call the Americans to come and investigate or to monitor our, election, as if you can't go to Ghana or go to Tanzania and say, come and monitor. It's because they know that we are divided. See, African problem, the biggest thing is the division. It's division. So until we begin to find a way of how to unite ourselves, and the truth of it is the fact that this is a big one, until I understand that, yes, just because Tapelo can do that and I can do it also, my strength is in the place of submitting to the fact that Tapelo has a voice bigger than mine and not for me to try to close his voice. Many of us as Africans were not humble enough for us to allow one thing to work. We're always very quick for us to bring things down. Like, Mara, it has to be me. It can't be Tapelo. It has to be Darlington. If it's not Darlington, then it's Adewumi and all of those very particular things. So that's just our big problem.
When you say that, I'm trying to reconcile the leadership models. No?
Okay.
That historically in Africa, we have a chiefdom, kingdoms, etc., where there is one line of march, of course, until someone kills that guy and then someone else comes in. But
so you believe that someone else killed the person?
No, I mean, one looks at a Shaka Zulu and the Zulu kingdom. It's back then, maybe not now, but back then. And then one looks at, which did have that almost a one-line authoritative dictatorship progress. And you have, on the other side, you have a democratic thing now where it's votes where I'd say it almost feels a bit divisive in nature, because now you have different people campaigning for different things, and somehow they're expected to come together and govern, or to have different ideologies in a government and still push.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are we coming together to vote for an idea, or we're coming together to vote for a personality? That's a question we need to start asking ourselves as Africans. These are progressive conversations we need to start talking about. Look at your just concluded election in South Africa. The new breed in town, MK Party. I'm sorry for me to mention your party. If I ask you point blank, you're in South Africa, it's your right for you to know what is the policy of MK Party. Can you give me two? Chances are the answer is no.
It's progressive.
It's progressive.
But
what is progressive?
Yeah.
I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. So our problem with us as Africans is the fact that we are not loyal to a cause, we are loyal to individual. If it's not Tapelo that is there, then I'm not going to vote. The question there is the fact that, there's a statement that I like. I think I bumped it. It was a statement by the late President Nelson Mandela. And I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't know word for word. It says, whether it is white or black, if the rat can do the job, then employ the rat to do the job. The question there is the fact that, are we willing to look at the problem and put the people needed to solve that very particular problem? Or no, because I'm loyal to Tapelo, so it has to be Tapelo. And yet we've given Tapelo literally 10 years. Nothing is happening.
But would you say the problem is also a person and not necessarily a system? Because, I mean, the way I see it is we are governing off of a system which is adopted.
The question is, somebody put the system there. Why can't the person change the system so that it becomes progressive? Except if you are saying that system drops from heaven, and so because of that, we don't know the model.
More from the colonial masters.
Yeah, but the colonial masters who put the system in quotes, they are humans.
Yes.
You can feel them, you can touch them. They can put your system in your country and you know the system is killing you. And yet you still say yes to the killing. Who is more stupid? The system or you who is accepting the system that is destroying you?
So how does Africa change the system
No, I think
for something that works for us?
We need to go back to what we as Africans we really want. What do we want? It's a question that every Africans, in fact, every one of us sitting in this very particular room here, we need to sit down and ask ourselves, what do we want? Until we understand what we want, everybody will give us what they think that we want. And so because of that, you will then begin to see the whole issue of, for example, one of the popular things, it has happened across Africa, the whole concept of xenophobia and all of those things where you feel that, okay, because you don't know what you want, and the next minute I come into the country and I'm doing something, then at that moment you now remember that that's what you want. Then you now begin to fight me. They're like, yeah, no matter, you came to take our jobs and stuff, but the job has been there, you did not go. You know, I like cracking jokes. I tell people, I say, point blank, I'm married to a South Africa. The narrative that says the foreigner come to our country to marry our women and take our job and go. I said, I think I've done one, so that's fine. And I remember, I've done one, that's fine. But the thing I then say to people who then come up with a narrative to talk to me, I said, the lady was literally from Eastern Cape. She's in Grahamstown. Why didn't you take a drive to that place to go and find her? She was single for almost all her life. You did not have the mind, because I almost wanted to say it in my tongues, but I need to come down to South Africa. You did not have the mind for you to go meet that very particular lady, to approach her and to say, hey, baby, what's up? And it's again, you know, there's a friend of mine, he's here. You know, sometimes when I see him, how he approaches ladies, sometimes I just laugh. I'm like, yo, Baba, you will cause problem in this country. We were coming up and I was seeing what he was doing. I just ignored it and move on with my life. But let's be honest, it is the confidence that he carries to approach what he wants. Then you can't come and say now, because I have this very particular lady, next minute you go on TikTok or you want to do a video, man, these people are taking our girls. They are sellouts. They are impimpy and stuff. No, what do you want? Do you want to marry a South Africa or do you want to marry a Congolese? If that's what you want, go and get it. Nobody is stopping you. You may say there is visa regulations and co, but people are still traveling. That's why it goes back to my point. What do you want? Which one focus do we have that we can use to push our narrative? It's a question that you and I need to answer.
Why do you think it is, from twofold? One, why South Africans have the approach that we do, or feel that we do? And two, why is there large immigration to South Africa from other countries?
Oh, chop knock. Now, let me start by this concept of xenophobia, that is xenophobia, Afrophobia. And please, and for those of you who are South Africa, I want you to understand that this very particular narrative literally did not start from South Africa. There was a time, even my country, Nigeria, where I'm from, there was a time whereby we also chased out Ghana. That's why we have a particular bag in Nigeria called Ghana Must Go.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, most of the African countries, they've actually gone through this whole issue of xenophobia and co. If you mention a few countries and co, I'll tell you when those times happened. But now this is the thing. Where South Africa takes the cap is the fact that of the killings of the Africans that is in your country. Now, it is not just about the killings also. It is the dehumanization of calling the people names that is not meant for them. I promise you, as I'm saying this now, literally, by the time this very particular thing goes out, you will hear names. Go back and check your comments and stuff. You hear names. Mara this correct, Mara this foreigners, Mara this very particular thing. And you're like, really? The first question I need to ask you, your skin color, my skin color, are they different? The problem with us of Africans, we've not understand that our diversity is a strength. The reason why all your 5 fingers is not equal is because each of them has assignment that they can do. Imagine if all the 5 is equal, I bet you will not be able to carry your coffee. So when you understand that a different Africans living in your country, it's a plus. The question you need to ask yourself is, what can I glean from this very particular person that can complement me? Now, let's bring it now to South Africa as to why the xenophobic is heavy or the Afrophobic is heavy. Let's call a spade a spade. I'm going to be very honest. The inequality in South Africa is very strong. The equity in this very particular country is almost close to 0:10. The blacks are really suffering. Sir, I have been here by God's grace 15 years. I have seen the poverty of the average South Africa. It is painful. Now, I'll be very honest to say, in that very particular note, your country get independent, they are still trying to deal with the pain of the dehumanization they get from the apartheid government. Then the next minute the border is open and boom, they see this influx of foreigners in their country where they are trying to, first and foremost, we are trying to deal with our pain. You know, like saying they are trying to reconcile during the Reconciliation Commission with Desmond Tutu and the next minute you are like, we're reconciling, but yes, somebody is doing the business and stuff. But is that a yardstick to attack your fellow black? No. In the system of xenophobic that is now prevalent in courts in South Africa, which I believe, this is my own take, South Africa carries the cup, but every other country they've gone through that very particular road. Why? It's because you feel that the only way you can survive and succeed is if Darlington, who is from Nigeria, will fail. And in that very particular narrative, you would do everything possible for you to fight. You know, you will see people who will fight to tell you that, no, he takes my job and stuff. But the question I asked them, do you have the certificate for that very particular job? You can wake up now with your team and decide to go to Nigeria to go do this very particular thing. And no Nigerian will wake up and say, no, you are here interviewing our people. Baba, you paid your ticket. You flied into this place. You comply by the rules and regulation. So the problem for xenophobic is here is the fact that number one is the fact that the people are not updated in their curriculum to make them understand that this is African and we are one. Tell me which curriculum in South Africa that talks about African history. No, give me one. You went to school, at least in South Africa. A curriculum that talks about African history that says, so education is still a major problem here. Your education you get in your country, literally, we are Bantu education, which is an educational system that makes you a slave. And so when you see a fellow black that looks superior, you fight. Instead of asking, how did you get there? Because you look like my color and there's something about you that you must look nice. You know, I like saying to my team, I said, the reason why I'm not afraid of the so-called other race color is because in my country, these guys are literally road constructor workers. So when I came here, so what are you doing in the office? Because in my country, you are literally a road constructor. So
what race is this?
I'm talking about the white guys now. Okay. So in my country, literally you are a road constructor. Now you are sitting in an office. My deputy is there. He will tell you point blank. So we get shocked. Like, okay. I remember by the time we were buying our property and co, and this very particular guy wanted to start talking nonsense. And I had to remind the guy, hey, Baba, relax. In my country, you work for me. I don't understand this what you are doing here. So you better calm down. If the fellow South Africans are not going to do it, I will teach you how to do it. Okay. So I say all of this because education plays a role in South African xenophobic that is happening. Black on black hate is not something that an average South African wants to do. I've met a lot of South Africans, but it's just the fact that I'm struggling to go to bed to eat, but the next minute I'm seeing you from West Africa, you are driving a Bentley. How do you think I'll feel when I wake up the following morning? That's the concept that is here. But you forget to understand that same person who is driving a Bentley in the morning that you went to sleep last night without food, you have access for you to go knock the door of the person and say, please, teach me how you do this. My point number 2, is the average South African willing to learn? It's a question for another day.
Okay. Yeah. But
welcome to... What's the name of your show again?
Palatable Politics.
I wanted to say welcome to everyone, show, don't mind me.
Yeah. Palatable Politics. We'll come to your show a different day. I do believe that there is a willingness to learn as South Africans.
But is it coming from a standpoint of humility or pride?
I would first start by saying it's coming from a position of survival. It starts with survival. It starts with putting bread on the table. It starts with progression and breaking our historic curses, well, not curses per se, but oppression.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say that. And then how it manifests is a different story.
But in you trying to manifest that, does it mean that you have to hurt the fellow person you want to learn from?
No, 100%. That they should be a more collaborative, a more unifying approach to everything. But when you were explaining, one of the things that triggered a video that I saw was when Judge Hlophe was saying, in Africa, we only ones that distinguish ourselves by black and white. But I mean, you go to England, it's English. You go to China, it's Chinese. America, it's American. But in Africa, it becomes black or white. Why would you say that is?
We still have this stock syndrome in us that my problem, and I think this is a thing and that somehow get me angry, where we like throwing our problems on somebody as a blame card to say this is the person that is causing my problem instead of us owning it. Now, the reason why Africa, we have a disparities of white and black is because this so-called white, let's be honest, I wish people would go back and do their research. These guys actually came into our country, our continent here, to literally farm.
On a boat.
They came in to just farm, and when they came into farm, can I be very honest with you, they came into farm looking for opportunity from us, the black. But our so-called black leaders then, they saw a boat on water and they were shocked. What was that? So you can't still blame them. It's like, for instance, where I look at some of the narrative that is happening within the Christendom. I'm a pastor. Within the Christendom, man, no, they use Bible to collect your land from you. And I'm like, are you for real? Now, the Bible is on your phone. Have you read it in your phone? Or did you find a scripture where it says, let the white go to Africa and collect the land from the South Africans? If it's not there, then stop blaming the Bible, but blame the person, his mindset of using the Bible as a tool. Because the Bible is in your hand now. You did not see any place in the place that says, go to Africa, colonize Congo, colonize Nigeria and stuff. They came in, they saw weakness in us, our greed. It is in Africa you will see somebody will carry 500 of their village people and put them on the ship to go to America to go and become a slave simply because I'm giving you a mirror. Then yet we still blame them. They didn't come force us. They saw our greed, tried to begin to put in what you call seed of separation on the people they find as a weak link. I'm not saying this to support the white. Please don't get me wrong. I'm saying this for us to understand that until we as black begin to own up, from the beginning, Baba, let's say it like a spade, we effed up. Let's begin to rearrange it. And that's why until we come with a conscientized, what are the smaller projects we can do as Africans? For instance, one of the big ones there that my team and I will throw it up here. How do we create a platform where tomorrow, if Facebook was shut down, or say Facebook says no to Africa, how do we survive?
Or if YouTube says we're not airing this.
For you to see, back to your worst question you were asking me. Your TikTok platform and co, other countries outside of the continent, they pay them for content. But we in Africa, they only give you a place of what you call series. And even in the series, they even lock the part to tell we are updating our platform. We will let you know. But in other countries outside of Africa, it is functioning properly. Why? Because they know we are consumers.
Okay. I don't want us to run away from this thing of religion because you mentioned it.
Let's go. You want to take me to religion? Let me
not too deep. Not too deep because I know you're there. But do you not think that you also downplaying the impact that religion, and I'm not saying whether it's Christianity, etc., has had on whether it's Africa and our development or our behavior or our attitude? When one looks at religion, and some of the questions I've had in my personal thing of, okay, these guys that have this Bible that preaches this particular thing, how did this people with this mentality or with this belief and this kindness and this, everything that Christianity in itself speaks to, have the heart or the mindset to oppress, to have slaves, to murder, or to do all of those things towards blacks? But when it comes here, it's a kumbaya.
Okay, now I'm going to answer your question in a very simple way. Do you have a car? You drive a car, right? Good. When the manufacturer produced that very particular car, did he say that the car should be used for accident or for transportation from one place to another?
Okay, transportation.
Now, good. Bring that context now into, I'll use the word Christianity. Let's leave the whole concept of religion, because sometimes when we go there, I don't know other religions and their games that they play into, but let me stay with Christianity and stuff, because at least I can be able to talk on that very particular side. When Christianity comes in, Christianity for us, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of life. In Christianity, for instance, there is no place where it says kill. And when you find somebody who come into Africa and it says kill your brother and stuff, then you know that that person is actually doing a purpose that was not intended by the Bible. It says love your neighbor as yourself. Then if the person cannot love me as themselves, it means there is something about the person that is a problem and nothing about the product that is on the table. So most of the times as us, and this is the problem with us as Africans, we don't look at the people who are bringing the product, but we want to now begin to attack the product. This mic we're using, the use of it is to talk to it, not to stand on it. When you find somebody standing on this mic, do you blame the mic that why did you allow the person to stand on it? Or you address the person who is standing on the mic? Our problem is the fact that, and I still repeat, is the fact that we don't want to sit back and have a self-introspection. I've sat with a lot of people who says, no, we Christians, we came into Africa and we use Bible to collect the land. And I keep telling them, till tomorrow, show me a passage in the scripture that says, use the Bible to collect land. They can't give me. It is somebody's greed from the West who find a soft spot in our heart. So just give him a bottle of wine. He's going to give us all the land. And they give him a bottle of wine and he gets drunk, and the next minute is like, yeah, just throw a stone wherever you like, it's your land. And that happened. Then tomorrow you wake up and discover that, okay, the land is not in your hand. Then you blame the Bible, but you don't blame the person who saw your own greed of drinking that wine and giving them that very particular land. So religion literally has, for example, I'm sorry to take this. What has Christianity do in Africa? I'll tell you point blank. That's why sometimes when I see some certain narratives going across and you wonder, do you know that in Africa here, most of our culture, especially our traditional culture, states that when a king or a notable person dies, you have to bury the people with a live human being because they need to carry the spirit of that person to the great beyond. And you are thinking, are you mad? In my country, we have a culture that says then, thank God for the likes of Mary Slessor who came into our country, where they stopped the killing of twins. There was a time that they were killing twins in Nigeria. Now, when you look at that part, you don't look at the good that this thing has done, but because this person who used these resources to make it bad, then you now blame the product, but forgetting the fact that the product has a use of it. It's just the greed of the person that takes the product as a medium of exchange with you. Who is to blame? The product or the person?
Fair enough. Disclaimer, I am spiritual. Just maybe not so much religious, but spiritual. But okay, so now for our viewers there that want to get involved in AFAN and the network, how do they go about it?
I think I would advise you go to our website, which is known as AFAN.Africa. You'll find everything that we do. One of the biggest things is the fact that I encourage all Africans to come is please have a mindset of collaborations and partnership. Come with a product that you want us to negotiate with. You can't just come in to say you just want to join AFAN, to say I just want to come in, Jay. You'll be a problem. So it's not for everybody still. You have to have something to offer that we can then find a way of how to then make you included in it. Is AFAN, a lot of people asking the questions, AFAN for foreigners or Africans living in diaspora? No, it's for Africans. That's why it's called AFAN. It's just the fact that at the moment, a lot of diaspora people are using the platform because it is quite easy for them to be able to migrate their business and find partnership and collaborations in different countries which we have present across Africa. So it's a place where if you need people that will understand you and you want to grow, you can come home. And in terms of the website, it's AFAN.Africa. Chances are maybe before the end of the program, they will put the contact details on how to get us. Our email address is AA, which is AA@AFAN.Africa. It's as simple as that.
One more question.
Please do.
We've just run through an election. We've had our president elected. Let's fast forward 5 years. The next election, what is the type of leader or the mindset of the leader that you believe we should have, not just in SA, but across the continent, that would be able to achieve unity under everyone?
Okay, I like that. But I want to answer a question that I think you once said it on the intro as to why foreigners or why Africans migrate into South Africa. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'm wearing this very particular African map here, right? When you look at the African map and you turn it like this, it looks like a pistol, right? Underneath here, this is the trigger. That is Nigeria.
Oh, you say piece of gun, okay.
Yeah, piece of gun, pistol. Okay, I don't know how you guys call it here, but okay. That's the beauty of diversity. So underneath here, it looks like a trigger. This is South Africa. If Africa were to get it right, including all of the African nation, whatever this mouth is saying, it will affect everything of the body. The reason why everyone is coming into South Africa, I'll be very honest with you, is because number one, The capital city of Africa is in this this is the nation for it. The narrative this very particular country is going to bring out to determine how the rest of the African country is going. See, it is not by accident for South Africa to go hold the Israelis accountable for what they are doing with Palestine. It's because that is its position as far as Africa is concerned. Every nation needs to sit back and look, okay, what is my assignment? The problem that I need to ask as a father, and this is me looking at the camera, does South Africa really actually understand their posture and their position in Africa? Have you ever sat down and asked yourself, why is it that South Africa is the only African country that has Africa in it? It is because according to time and life, or like people will say, according to seasons or according to the prophetic elope, is the fact that South Africa has been positioned as the country that will literally begin to pioneer new conversations and narrative. But the question at the moment we need to ask ourselves, what conversations are we seeing? For you to know where South Africa is sitting. Xenophobia and all of these things happen in every other country. But when South Africa takes it up, it becomes louder. It's because it's the mouthpiece.
Okay.
When you have a problem with your leg, it is your mouth that will say the problem. Not your leg will say, my leg is painful.
So with that said,
with that
the type of leader that's
going
needed.
Back to the leadership, with that said, if Africa would have a proper ecosystem in leadership, we need to begin to see leaders who are willing to train the next generation as to the progressive thinking or the progressive action they need to take. If we don't have leaders who are going to come up with solutions planned for the current problem we're having, I'm sorry, 2029, which is the next election, we'll still repeat GNU. By the way, GNU, you and I know too well, is a political way of saying coalition. But even with that being said, 2029, I tell people, I said from what I'm saying currently, 2029, it's going to be literally tug of war. Because if we think that this 2024 election that we're seeing now, we think that is just a child's play, but watch out for 2029. In fact, you'll begin to see the narrative changed from 2026 when the municipal election is going to happen in this very particular country. So if our leaders are literally going to create something good, our leaders must have something good in them to offer. People will tell you, no, let's get somebody that will take over the reins from our leader. The question is, of our leader, are they willing to hand on the baton? And the baton in their hand, what is it? Is it a baton of greed or a baton of the next movement that will make make Africa collective, that will make Africa united, that will make Africa see innovative way or how to use these chairs to create something important that we can begin to export? Is it a leader that will understand that partnership and collaboration has nothing to do with my interest, but has everything to do with the progressive nature of our continent? If that question is not answered, we'll repeat the class again.
Thank you. Thank you for making time and coming to the show.
Thank you.
Guys, I hope it's been insightful. I hope it's been palatable. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and tune in. Same place, same time next week.